Well, we are going to go ahead and start. Good morning. My name is Daniela Ardosiles. I am in Brownsville, Texas at St. Joseph's Academy, interviewing Arnulfo Mar for the Voces Oral History Project. Today is April 2nd, 2017. Thank you, Mr. Mar, for agreeing to be interviewed by our project.
Sure.
Please know that if there are topics you don't wish to discuss, you will not have to discuss them. Also, if there's something you wish to discuss, we want to hear from you. If at any point you wish to stop the camera to get a drink or use the facilities, please let us know and we can briefly stop the tape. As we said earlier, your interview will be housed at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection at the University of Texas at Austin campus. So let's begin. First of all, Mr. Mar, how would you like to be addressed today? Mr. Mar, Dr.
I'm used to Dr. Mar, so you can call me whatever you want.
Dr. Mar.
It doesn't matter. Mr. Really.
Okay. So, Dr. Mar, how were you involved with the South Texas Border Initiative, or how did it directly impact you?
Well, since I've been teaching for the university since, let me tell you my story. I started teaching with Texas Atmos College back in 1990, many years ago. And then the Texas Atmos College turned into University of Texas, Texas Atmos College partnership and so on. So we went through that process where we initially with Texas Atmos College there was it was only a junior college. In other words, there were only the first 2 years. The first 2 years of college were offered here, and then once the university took over, and I say taking over because that's essentially what it did. Then we started seeing more resources coming down, more opportunities for our kids to go to school, to complete their degrees. So we expanded into for BS degrees. The facilities started to increase. So more money started to come on down from the state. Essentially, that's what happened.
Okay. And how did you see the impact of your community or of the region after that?
Well, it's in terms of more opportunities for our students. See, I was going back. I came to Brownsville back in '74. I immigrated from Mexico, came to Brownsville in '74, and again, way back then there was this junior college, Texas Atmos College, which offered again the first 2 years of school, and then there was no other opportunities for higher education for us at the time. So if anybody wanted to continue school, they had to transfer out of here, or just become a technician or something. Because the college was offering vocational courses, so it was more of a I guess it was a community college also, because it offered technical degrees. But anybody that was interested in academia or getting a BS degree, he had to get out of here. So that was the situation. So I myself had to move out of here and go up to the University of Houston. Now I was lucky that I was able to go with sacrifices, and a lot of other kids were able to get out of here, went up to the universities and so on. But we had to literally, leave and get educated somewhere else in order to complete our BS degrees. Now once moving forward to 1992, when UTB took over, like I said, then degrees were offered. Then more facilities we got more money, we got new buildings, we got then our kids didn't have to leave the area in order to get their BS degrees. And there were even some master's programs that were instituted, and eventually the university UTB was offering even doctoral degrees, especially in education. So that was what we saw as a great increase in resources, and also more faculty members that were hired. Everything exploded. It was an explosion. We were so happy when I started teaching at the community college back in 1990. I was asking, when are we going to turn it into a 4-year institution? Right? When are we going to do that? And people say, oh, it will never happen because there's just no money. There's just no chances. I mean, Texas Atmos College has been here since I think 1934 or something like that, a long time. So again, I was asking, well, are we ever going to be able to teach junior courses, senior courses. Now people say no, there's just not enough money. There's just no chance. But then all of a sudden, this explosion happened. Money coming from the state and more faculty members were hired. We started offering BS degrees in chemistry, physics, biology, and so on. And so it was great.
So when people would be, I guess, discouraging of it ever becoming this four-year university, what was your reaction? How would you respond?
About the well, it was meaning that students. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
So people who would say that there wasn't enough resources, there wasn't enough money to for this 2-year college to become a 4-year university. How would you respond to those comments of theirs?
Well, frustration, in a sense, because why not? Well, being young and not being aware of the situation, I didn't know if. Now I know better that it takes a lot of money to get BS degrees going, because it takes equipment. Especially, I'm in the sciences, I'm in chemistry, so it will take investment in build more labs, bring more money for equipment, hire more faculty, and so on. So it was frustrating at the time. Like, why couldn't we do it? Why is it that this is an area? And I always said, this is Brownsville has almost 100,000 people, and there's only a community college. Why is it that we cannot have a university? I mean, I went up to the University of Houston, and there's a university, seems like 2-3 universities in the same town. Sure, it's a huge town, but then we had U of H, Texas Southern, we had the medical center, and so on. So we could see that once I started getting a little bit more experience, then I noticed how the money was not coming down this way. All the money seemed to stop at, north of Corpus Christi. There was nothing here for, in the sense that for BS degrees for our students. Right now, I go to Pan American University. Well, we're part of the UT-RGV campus now, university. But I don't know if you ever gone to Pan American University in Edinburgh. Their campus is ugly, just plain ugly. And then I ask around, why is it that these buildings they look like Eastern European era buildings? They just very, very functional, but they're ugly. There's no architecture. Well, people said, look, we didn't have the money to build this campus. We were a university. We've been a university since who knows when. It's been a while. But we just didn't have the money, so we had to get the cheapest materials to build our buildings. And if you go up there, no disrespect meant, but it's just those old buildings. They're ugly. The materials are cheap, and that was due to the lack of, people tell me, lack of money at the time. There was nothing else to build the university with, so they went with the cheapest materials they could find and no architecture. If you go to our college here, the Texas Alamos College, which now is UTB and now is UT-RGV, the campus is beautiful. Because there was more money once the university started to get built. Even kids now that come from what is still called Pan American University in Edinburgh, they come on over here and they get amazed with the beauty of the campus, and it's got architecture. The buildings are nice, and that was built with some of the money that percolated down since 1990, 92.
So in the process of that improvement, do you remember a certain experience or certain moment in your life more clearly that you remember witnessing these inequalities? Something that just stood out to you?
Well, the inequalities before, yeah. When I went off to Houston in '78, I came back in 1990. And when I came down here, even though I had been here in '74, I noticed that nothing much had been changed. From '74 to 1990, there was nothing in terms of improvements. There were a few minor things, like the library had been remodeled, and I think they built the second floor, but it was cheaply made. Our joke was that if we ever have a good hurricane, the second floor of the library will be blown over, because there was just some flimsy walls that had built. I mean, the university, the college needed to grow, but there was just not enough money, so they just built the second floor of the library, which it will shake with high winds. So I noticed that. I also noticed, the labs were badly equipped back in 1990. There was just not enough money. Uh, Pay was relatively good for faculty. It wasn't bad. We couldn't complain about that. But just the facilities as a whole, it was just not conducive uh, for the type of education that we need. We needed facilities, and then we were a 2-year college. There was offer in the sciences, offer the first 2 years of science, and that was it. It was frustrating to see our very, very good students that wanted to go to medical school, but they didn't have the way to transfer somewhere else. So what could they do? All they could do was just take 2 years of college, and some of them became teachers out of frustration. Nothing against teachers, high school teachers, school teachers, they're fine. But some of them, I still talk to some of them that were my students back in 1992, and they said, I could have gone to medical school if we would have had the chance. But they couldn't leave the area because they were poor. There was no way to go to UT Austin or the big universities to complete the degree, so they just stayed. And it was sad to see some kids that had the potential to do much more with their lives, and now some of them are teachers. Some of them dropped out of teaching because that's not something they didn't want to do, and some of them are just working as technicians now.
So you were discussing how the facilities were not as up to par as you or your colleagues would have liked them to be, and how the morale of students, I guess, was pretty low at that time?
Well, I would say that the students were eager, but at the same they realized the situation, and it was more disappointment. Like, so if we want to continue with our education, what do we do? So will you get out? And some of them, this area being one of the poorest areas in the country, they just couldn't afford to get out. So again, like I was mentioning a while ago, I started attending college, junior college in '74. I was born in Matamoros, and then I graduated from high school there, and then I came over, and then along the way I got married, and then what am I going to do now? There's no chances for a better education other than a BS degree. Now I could have become a teacher, but I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to study science. In fact, so. Okay, so you get out of here. So my wife stayed behind, and I had to leave on my own, and I went off to Houston, and that was the only way to get an education. And she stayed behind, and so on and so forth, and that was due to the lack of opportunities. And then when I came back in 1990, like I said, nothing had changed much. A few little things here and there. No additional degrees. We were still a junior college or community college, and nothing had changed. The old professor that was here when I was a student, he was still here, and he had hired another person to teach chemistry, and that was it. And I came in, and there were 3 faculty members. He was the chair of the department plus two more of us, and that was it. We had plenty of students, plenty of classes, but it was frustrating. We used to offer the first 2 years of chemistry in biology and physics, and that was it. And the students were, some of them were able to get out, but the majority just stayed behind because there was no money for them to be able to go to big universities.
So you mentioned how your wife stayed behind. So can you just elaborate on that, how that experience was for you two, if that was like a difficult time for you two?
Yeah, it was fairly difficult. Yeah, because we had a kid already at the time. At the time I moved out of here in '78, and it was difficult. Yeah, and I tell the kids my story. I survived on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a whole semester. But my main point was to finish my degree, and I went to Houston. I went to Houston because at the time when I went up there in '78, it was a boom town. You could find a job just by standing at a corner. I mean, there was so much going on that you stand at a corner, people were, did you want a job? So I worked part-time and I went to school. So it took me additionally 3 more years to finish my BS degree. So I tell my students, I started in 74 on my BS and I finished it up in 81. So it took me that long, 7 years. It took me longer to get a BS degree than to get a PhD. I finished my PhD in 6 years, but then my BS took 7. And as you know, and I'll go to Houston and I went to Houston and I will come home every now and again. There was just not enough money. We were struggling. The wife stayed behind because there was just no way for us. She didn't like the big cities. And besides that, we realized that her being there would be more of a, struggle to make it. And so she stayed behind with her parents and I went away. And eventually, got my degree after 78 to 1987, and then I started working at MD Anderson as a postdoc for a couple of years, and then the opportunity to come back here developed. I always been a teacher. I like to teach. That's my deal. Research is fine and dandy, and that's up to other people. But I like to teach. I like to be in front of a class and to inspire the students, to get them moving. I still do that. I tell them, look, there's a lot of potential. You just gotta be able. You gotta be able to apply yourselves and do it.
And what was it that initially got you, I guess, interested in teaching?
It goes back to when I was a kid in Mexico. When I was a kid in Mexico, all role models were teachers, because I remember my parents. My parents had my parents immigrated from interior of Mexico. My father was from Veracruz. My mother was from San Luis. So there were no opportunities. My parents had maybe third grade education. My mother knew how to read and write and knows how to read and write. My father could do math in his head. He was very bright, but he never had the chance to go to school and move up to third grade education at the most. So they immigrated to the border because the border was the land of opportunity. Now, my parents were never interested in coming to the United States. That was very interesting. My dad never wanted to come to the States. Most of the people in Matamoros, the immigrants, they come to the border with the dream of eventually getting onto the United States. My dad never liked it. He said, no, I'm not going to the United States. No need for me. My mother did. My mother was, before my mother and my father got together, my mother was a maid. They used to swim across the river. That was many years ago, 1945 or so. They'll come and work as maids across the river, and then swim across the river, work as maids, make a little money, and that was it. My mother tells me the story that they used to get deported. The border officials will grab them, send them back to Mexico. They'd be back the next evening because they would just wade across the river, and it was no big crime. It was just like a game. Anyway, so eventually my parents settled in Matamoros. My dad said, look, I'm not going to the States. I don't have any need for it. And so when he took me to the school, they will take you to school. And my dad told me one time, said, look, as far as I'm concerned, when you go to school, you obey your teacher. He's your second, he will call it your second father. He says, you follow whatever the teacher says. And we were coming from a very poor background, and we understood at an early age that education was power. For us, being able to know something was like, it was power. In Mexico, we don't, when I grew up, we didn't have intelligent people or bright people. We used to have people that worked very hard. That's all it took. Like in Mexico, the best student in class, we don't call them the brightest. We call them más aplicado, the one that applies himself, and that is the one that makes it. So when my father took me to school, he said, look, he's your father here, and at the time they could hit us, they could beat us up. The teachers, they will discipline you. There was no nonsense. No. And my father said, look, if you come home and tell me that your teacher beat you up, I'll beat you up again, because I'm sure he had a reason. Now, the teachers that I had were wonderful. At the time, the teachers really wanted to teach. They had this, like a service, and we admired the teachers just like we would admire priests. I'm not religious. My parents were not religious, but in the towns of Mexico, the priest is held in high regard along with teachers, and those were my role models, the teachers, and just the fact that they had knowledge. My father one time told me when I told him that I had finished my BS degree before he died, he goes, well, and I told him about another kid that had also graduated with me, and he goes, who knows more? ¿Quién sabe más? For him, that was it. Degrees didn't matter. ¿Quién sabe más? So that was my the context of me becoming a teacher. I suppose it has to go with ego also, like here I am and I know more than, but in the end I like to, and I tell my students, when I was a student back in '74 here at TSC, I was not the brightest. I was never and I'm not a bright person. I just had teachers even at Texas Alamos College at the time that inspired me and said, look, you can do it. Go off to the big universities because we don't offer anything here. Move on. And they kind of got a kick in the behind. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. And that's all it took.
So just going back to something you mentioned, why do you think it was that your father didn't want to come to the States? Why was that?
He didn't like it. He didn't like it. He just, going back, he had a little crossing cart, the one that we get, to come to across the border. He'll come across, but he didn't appeal to him. He just didn't appeal to him. He goes, look, if I'm going to make a living, I'm going to make a living in Matamoros. And we were very poor. I can tell you the whole story, but we were very poor, the poorest of the poor. And he struggled very hard. He kept us fed and clothes, and we had a change of clothes. But he never liked it. Never did. I don't think he ever went beyond Brownsville. In Brownsville, he never liked. He goes, no, it's just not. Never.
So, was that interesting for you when he was very encouraging as far as your education? Did he also push you to come to the States? Was that something he encouraged for you individually, or?
No, education he pushed. That's one thing that my parents always pushed. Education. You gotta get educated. The only way to go to make it out of this poverty is through education. They always push that. And to come to the United States, no, he said, look, you do whatever you want. Just make sure that you can support yourself. Whether it's in Matamoros, but he knew that even in Matamoros the educational opportunities were fairly low. So for him it was just find your way, and goes, I helped you as much as I can, and I could, and now it's up to you. But you go whatever you want.
Okay. And so you've mentioned what got you into teaching. Could you explain a little bit what got you interested in the sciences and in chemistry and all of that?
Well, it has to do with immigrants like me. Of course, my first language is Spanish. Now, when I came to here, I said, well, look, my English is quite limited, which it still is. Like I tell people, the English language is quite limited. But I said, you know what? If I get into the science, we always had this thing about scientists having, an accent and being German and I said, well, if I get into the sciences, it doesn't matter how I say it, or, as long as I know what I'm doing. So that's what got me into the sciences. Now, when I first started, I did a year of, after I graduated from Mexico, I went over to Galveston, and I did a year in high school, just to get myself more fluent in English. I was doing in high school what I had learned in Mexico in junior high. I was doing, in Mexico, the educational system is that you take calculus when you're a senior in high school. So I went up to Galveston, I got enrolled in high school, and they were teaching me algebra. And that was something I had done in 7th grade. So when I was in school, I couldn't speak the language. I could understand a little bit of it, but I could do the algebra. But people thought I was a genius because I could do the simple algebra they were teaching me in high school, something that it was so simple for me. That was just the educational system in Mexico. And so I said, well, look, I'm going to get into the sciences. Learn it, don't matter how you say it, as long as you know what you're doing. And that's what got me interested.
And as far as your children go, what schools did they also attend schools in that area in
My
Brownsville? Your children.
they were all born here, and then they came to school here. Yeah, yeah.
Were you happy to see that it had progressed, that it had
Oh yeah,
improved
yeah.
since you were there?
My oldest daughter got a BS in marketing. Another one is a teacher, and my third daughter is a nurse. See, now she was able to get her RN degree, which before we didn't have. So she's an RN. Now my youngest daughter, she's still going to school. Now she's working a master's degree in psychology. So these are the opportunities which before we wouldn't even dream of, as far as education. Well, maybe we could dream, but we could never get them.
So I'm just gonna, I guess, go back to the South Texas Border Initiative and how that, I guess, it was designed to challenge the inequalities faced by the border region, correct?
Yeah.
Why do you think this inequality existed to begin with? Why do you think
Inequality?
such disparity is there?
And I'm going to be very honest. I think it has to do with this area being mostly Mexicans. I know, and we still see it. We still see as far as money is concerned. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but this is my take. This area, the border area. When I was in Houston, people will talk about the Rio Grande Valley, and they look like, that's Mexico. We don't care about those people. Let's keep them there. And I think it had to do with the state not caring for anything that was going on south of San Antonio, even Corpus Christi, that area. They just immigrants. They have no political power. They don't vote. They just people uneducated. Let's keep them uneducated. And again, I'm not politically correct at all, but that was my take. And even now, we're one of the poorest area in the country. Okay, and that is due to lack of opportunities. Also, well, it's a result of the lack of opportunities, because we're not going to solve this problem in how long has it been? 25 years. It's going to take a little bit more. And now what happens is that our students that are able to get degrees here, they go off to the big school, big cities, and they don't come back. And I don't blame them for not coming back. There's very little opportunities here still, as far as jobs is concerned. Just if you're not a teacher, a lawyer, or a doctor, here there's very little. There's no industry. So it's a result of all this. Is a result of I'm going to call it discrimination that existed prior, as far as economics. Sending money down this way. Yeah.
And what do you think could, I guess, be done to minimize that, to fix the problem, I guess?
Well, this is now the UT system has created the UTRGV school. That is good, because it's going to open up opportunities for more opportunities for everybody involved. There's a need for industry here, and jobs for our students to get. I mean, I had students that get, and it's very sad, BS degrees in chemistry, and they're selling shoes at the mall. And that is very sad for me, because I tell the students, look, you went through 4 years of training hard, and then you're selling shoes. Well, sir, there's no jobs for me here. And I said, well, get out of here. But some of the students can't get out. Yeah. So there you go.
So how did you feel, I guess, about that, the merger, like between UT Pan American and UT Brownsville? Do you think UTRGB is, you said it's offering more, it's a great, improvement, but you still have these students, like the one you mentioned, that faces these difficulties. How do you feel about the merger and its effects, I guess?
It's got its pluses and minuses, mostly pluses, because by merging together, there's now our students can get master's degrees. See, Pan American, I still call it Pan American because it's been so long, it's been there. they were more advanced than we were because they've been a university for the longer period of time. So they had master's degrees and so on. And here UTB TSC, we started in 1992. So we were still developing. Now with the merge, putting together the two universities, then our students can get those degrees. And now with the medical school also, our students don't have to go anywhere else to get into medical school if they get admitted. Now they have also programs such as PA programs, which didn't exist before, that Pan American has. So some of our students can get admitted there. So it's a great opportunity. Now there are minuses. There's always, it's not a perfect union or a perfect deal. The kinks are still being worked out.
And have you noticed, since that merger, have you noticed that change in morale, that change in attitudes of the students, of your colleagues, for example?
Not among the colleagues. No, not among us. No. Because if we're not better off than before. And now we feel like it's getting more bureaucratic. There's just more bureaucracy, more papers. Well, maybe not papers, forms to fill, and so on. Now the students they're more excited about what's going on now. The only problem that we have, one of the problems that we have, is our students have to travel all the way to Edinburgh to take classes. My daughter has to travel all the way up there. To get a master's degree, sometimes the students have to go all the way to Edinburgh, or some of the students from Edinburgh have to come down this way. Because we had very strong programs here. Our physics program was one of the best that we had, and even is known internationally. They're very good, the physicists. Now at Pan Am, the program is not as good as here. Here we have excellent researchers. So students that want to get their degrees in physics, from Pan Am, they have to travel all the way up here. So that is a hardship, having to get. Now, if you can afford it, you can drive. But most of our students take the free bus. But now it takes you an hour and a half to get there, and it takes you an hour and a half to come back. So for a typical class of, let's say that you go once a week, for an evening class, you have to travel 3 hours back and forth. Each way. I'm sorry, 1.5 hours each way. So that is a hardship for some of the kids. But overall, I think it's going to work out. It's going to eventually. The university has to come up with something better than just providing transportation. Maybe doing the whatever this thing is, but through TV. Now we hear also part of the facility, talking about facilities. We didn't have the facilities for those, how do you call those things? So through the television thing, courses where a professor is sitting up there and he's beaming the signal up here. We didn't have the facility, so the university offered, some of you might not have to travel. We're going to do the long distance, whatever that thing is called. We had one classroom with television that were, those facilities. So now slowly we're coming up with more and more and more classrooms. So.
Well, it's good that those issues are being addressed, though, that even if it's started off with one classroom, that's slowly improving.
Yes, yeah. So things are going to get better.
What do you think were a few of the issues that led to the merger to begin with between UTPA and UT Brownsville to form RGV?
Some people like to think that we were not doing very good, both Pan Am and UTTSC, that we were just floundering around and so on. And by merging it, that now we can be more accountable, and putting by putting the two universities together. That's what people believe. The motives. It's really hard to tell. He came down from Austin, and they decided to merge the university. Some people say, well, because of the creation of the medical school was possible. Now, with the another reason why this university was created, so that we can get some of the PUF money, there's this endowment that the University of UT system has because of some land that they own in West Texas that produces oil, and all that money it goes to the PUF, public. I don't even remember what it stands for. But anyway, so this huge amount of money goes to the UT system, and now we were not getting that money. All the UT Austin gets the lion's share of it, and then other universities part of the system, but we were not. And then and one of the reasons why the legislation decided to integrate the two universities is that, like that, being created by state bill or state law, we will be part of the PUF fund, so we could see money coming in. Now, 2 years ago, we were dancing in the streets, thinking, oh, money is going to be raining down. Hasn't come down just yet. Okay, and I understand this. UT Austin is not going to is going to say, look, my share is my share. I'm not going to share with anybody else. UT Dallas, the same. The big, powerful guys. We are little guys. We just came in, so a little money is coming in, but not as much as we thought it would be raining money. Oh, we were dancing in the streets, but not yet.
And what is your opinion on that inequality between, for example, UT Austin, a school like UT Austin, and the resources that you all get in the Valley School?
Yeah, we're still not funded as much as we should. Yeah, and why not? I mean, we got the students, we should get money, but it's inequality. And I even hear from some of the students, our students are getting very, very, very clever, and they start seeing things. They're more vocal now. The students get more, they get very informed, and they say, well, why is it that we don't have programs like UT Austin? Why is it that UT Austin's got all this money? Our facilities are not as good. Our buildings are, we don't have enough buildings. We don't have enough classrooms. Pan American, the campus up at Edinburgh is ugly. The grounds are nasty. And no fault of their own. There's just not enough money. How come the transportation is no good? Going back and forth to Edinburgh campus. We had the problem before where the students were being left behind. You have a class at 8 o'clock in the morning at either at the Edinburgh campus or at the Brownsville campus. You have to catch the shuttle at 6:30. So you could get here right before 8. There were kids that would show up at 6:30 and the bus will fill up. And guess what? There's no transportation. So the kid will miss a class. And the kids said, well, the university they promised they will provide transportation. There was a big controversy. And I said, well, why couldn't we get money to get more buses? It's as simple as that. That's just an example.
And what do you tell these students when they bring this up to you, when they mention these struggles that they're facing?
I'm always, and I've been criticized because I'm always on the side of the students. Because I was a student once, and I tell the student, the only difference between you and me is that I'm here and you're there. And I said, and I tell the students, look, you have rights. You may not believe it, but you have rights. Transportation is being paid by your student using your student fees. Go and complain. Write letters send an email to the president. Send an email to everybody. Now with emails, you don't have to write memos anymore. You can just type in a memo and send it to the president and dean of students and everybody. Complain. I mean, because those are your rights. Okay? They may listen to you. Administration is not going to listen to me because they think, oh, just the professor, that doesn't know anything. I tell students, look, you exercise your rights.
Could you, I guess, explain to me a little bit what your experience teaching was like before and after the merger, if anything changed, if there were any differences?
The merger with UTRGV? Mm-hmm. It's been positive because now, the merge with Pan Am, Now we can. Pan Am had a master's program in chemistry, as far for in our field, a master's program. We had just a BS degree here, but now we're able to offer graduate courses here on this campus. And in fact, I'm teaching a graduate course which is being taken by some high school teachers that want to get their master's degree in the sciences. So this is the first semester. This semester is the first semester that I teach a graduate course on this campus. So that is a great plus. And so we can teach courses which Pan Am, Edinburgh had, which now with the merge, we can teach those courses. We don't have, I remember when we were proposing our BS degree in chemistry, during this transition back in after 1992, we had only those 2-year college courses in chemistry. We have to go through hoops because we have to develop the degree plan for the coordinating board. And the coordinating board said, well, why do you want a degree in Brownsville, a BS degree in chemistry? Pan American Edinburgh has one. It's only 50 miles away. See, it comes down to all the way to, and I said, look, our students cannot go up there. And they said, well, why not? 50 miles in a big city? You live in Houston, 50 miles is no big deal. You live in Austin, right? What's the big deal? So we had to, another faculty member, 2 other faculty members, we have to write a justification to the coordinating board telling them, look, our students cannot travel all the way to Edinburgh to get their BS degree, so we need one here. Okay, as far back as 92, 93. And then so they said, well, if, we're going to give you the money. They just didn't want to give us the money to buy equipment so we could offer 3rd and 4th year courses, I suppose. So we have to go through hoops. All these are the courses that we need. Do you need more money? Of course we need money to buy equipment, as far back as that. But now with Pan Am had a BS degree in chemistry and now even a master's degree. So now we can offer those courses here, advanced courses, which our students, even if when they got their BS degree in chemistry, where are they going to get a master's even if they want to? Some of them were teachers, but they wanted to get a master's in interdisciplinary science, so they could take biology, chemistry, and physics, but we didn't have that. But now with Pan Am, the joining, that's one of the strengths. We can teach the courses. Also, Pan American University was an American Chemical Society approved or certified program. So with the merge, our program is also, now it's one program, so we all ACS certified, which is great for our students. Their diploma, once they meet all the requirements, the diploma says Bachelor of Science, ACS certified. And when they go look for a job, the certification from ACS means a lot.
So what would you describe the difference in mood of your department, for example, before the merger, during, and now after?
But we were okay. We were very comfortable. We were offering our courses. We just going along, and we're just doing fine. But now with the merge, more opportunities. We say, okay, now we can do more. Now those people that are into research, because we hire people to do research, we didn't have the facilities for research here. But now with they building us a new building, a new science building on campus. So we'll see that people are getting excited about, okay, now I'm going to have my own lab and I can do research. We can have master's students, which we didn't have before. So now, we can do more, especially the master's place in chemistry. We can offer a master's degree in chemistry here on this campus, because since the merge, that was one of the advantages. That we can offer everything that Pan Am was offering, and vice versa.
And how do you think the development of these programs or these new buildings how do you think that's going to affect, I guess, the community as a whole?
Well, it has to be a positive effect. Yeah, our students will have more chances for an education. Okay. Now, even the building, building constructing the building provides jobs for people from here, because you have plumbers, roofers, everything, so money that comes into the community, and regardless of all the things that are going, that are being happening, the community is really proud of our university. They're really, really, they like the university. They think it's great. At least the kids get a chance to go to the university, and the community is happy to see a university. Whereas before, like I said, back in the late 70s, early, even late 70s, early 80s, the university was just something that was just dreamed of. Yeah. And the university is very pretty, by the way. It has nice architecture. I don't know if you've seen it. It's very nice. Yeah. The president we had before, she took care of the grounds. And I mean, compared to Pan Am Edinburgh, again, Pan Am Edinburgh is another story. But here, the buildings are very nice. The architecture is very, very pretty. Yeah.
You're happy with the way it's looking.
Yeah, although the arches drive me crazy sometimes. There are too many arches. You might want to edit that.
Okay, so we've heard a couple of stories of people who lost their tenure, who lost their positions when this merge happened. Could you explain a little bit what that meant, how that happened?
Well, it was even before the merge for us. When we became, we were, TSC. In 92, the university, UTB, TSC, they form a partnership between and it's a complicated story, which I don't know the details of, between the community college and the university. So we had a partnership, whatever that means. Now, in UTRGV took over, I say taken over, 2015, I think. Yeah. Now, UTB divorced from TSC a couple of years before. So there was this partnership, and then all of a sudden the community college went on its own, and then UTB was freestanding for 2 years, I think. Then, and this is something that we very suspicious about. There was a plan where they wanted to merge Pan Am and UTB. Motives, who knows? But then all of a sudden, they were telling us that, before we divorced the community college, we had about 12,000 students, give or take, or maybe around there. When the community college left, they took about 5,000 students. Okay, so we had only 7,000. So it was a chance for the administration to say, you know what, we don't need as many as you. And then it was a bloodbath. The administration said, look, we have 5 faculty members in chemistry, we need only 3. And we're just going to get rid of you. And that was it. And people lost jobs. It was not very pretty. Luckily, I survived because, thanks to my mother's prayers, mostly. But there were people that were let go that had been here for many years. They were still especially from the community college. They were essentially fired, let go. And that was unfair. That was very unfair. Tenure or non-tenure, there was just surgically, they just said, look, this is the way we're gonna do it. We don't need an excuse to get rid of you. The only reason is because we don't have as many students, so you're gone. And the workforce here with us, faculty numbers were reduced drastically. I don't want to say the number, but they talk about 1/3 of the faculty, maybe less. But I really don't know the numbers. But in our department, we had how many faculty members? I think we had 5, and we lost 1. Or was it 4? I don't remember. Yeah, but we lost 1 person. And that person had been with us even during the community college years, but it was let go. And there were other examples where very good faculty members were let go for the only reasons because we're downsizing. But we believe that there was a some kind of plan somebody had. I mean, we always think, well, somebody had this plan, but it was painful to see people leave, and that hit the morale of people. They were just devastated. People were devastated, and some of us were just waiting for the hammer to be lower on us. We just didn't know when they were going to fire us. And then when UTRGV took over, I mean, we're still waiting for the hammer. I mean, who knows by now? Who knows? UTRGV may decide, look, we don't really need programs in Brownsville. We're just going to let you go. So it's still a little iffy. So we're very skeptical about what may happen later.
Yeah. So we were talking about how a couple of your colleagues were let go during that merge, even before you said.
Yeah, before UTRGV, yes. Yeah.
And then did we go into during that merger?
I'm sorry?
Did we go into during that merger as well? Yes, right? How one of your 4 colleagues?
Yeah, one. Yeah. Mm-hmm,
Okay.
Yeah. This was the time when UTB was on its own, which lasted about 2 years. Yeah, more or less, for about 13 to 15. It was a couple of years when it was on its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was before it was with. When you say it was on its own, can you just explain that for me? I'm kind of confused. When UT Brownsville.
Yeah.
But like before it.
Yeah. See, first there was TSC.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then we merged the university, UTB, in '92, was established with a partnership with the community college. Okay, where the board of the community college was also the board of the university. It was really complicated. The main thing we didn't, for us, we didn't faculty members that were with TSC, we didn't suffer at all. We were just picked up. We became a part of the UT system. And that was great at the time in '92, and I think it had to do with, this initiative, the board initiative, when money started to come down, and things developed a great deal at the time in '92, and then the university lasted until 2000, I think, 15, I think, or 13, and then all of a sudden the community college decided to go on its own. So UTB was again by itself. And it lasted for a couple of years. And that was the time when the big reduction in force happened, before we merged with UTRGV.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we underwent a lot of cuts as far as personnel, faculty members concerned, but Pan Am didn't suffer much. We wonder. And that's good for them. That was good for them.
Why do you think that was, that they didn't suffer as much?
I don't know. Well, they were, one of the reasons may be because they were always been a university on their own. So they had the students, and they had many students, thousands of students. I don't know how many, 20,000 students or so, I think. And we were on our own, like I said, when we separated from the community college. The community college took 5,000 students, so we left behind with 7,000 or so. So it was a little shaky there for a while. We didn't know what was going to happen to us. It's UTB, freestanding UTB. And we had a few buildings only, because the community college took most of the buildings, and we had just a few.
And what do you think was, in your opinion, what was the criteria, I guess, or what went into choosing who stayed and who left?
There's no criteria. No. The university, the administration said, you're gone. Why? We don't need you anymore. One of the, the reasons that besides just arbitrary cuts was that people, when we were it goes back to the junior college, because most of the people that stayed on for a long time to teach had only EDD degrees. To teach at a community college, all we needed was a master's degree back in, up to '92. So the person that lost the job with us had an EDD. She had a master's degree in chemistry, and then just to continue her education, went and got her an education degree. They call it doctorate in education, which was more than enough to teach at a community college. Remember, only 2 years, freshman and sophomore chemistry. Fine. Now, when UTB took over and merged with TSC, so okay, EDDs, no big deal. When I came in as a teacher at TSC back in 1990, people said, well, you're overqualified. You have a PhD. You shouldn't be teaching at a community college. You got a PhD. You ought to go and work at research university. But I never wanted to do that. I wanted to teach. Goes back to I always wanted to teach. So and I was in tenure at the time that UTB took over, and to get tenure you need research and so on. But as a community college teachers, all we did was teach our classes and teach them well. So I got tenure on the UTB, and the persons that had EDDs stayed with UTB TSC and continue on. Now when we became a university, UTB, people said, well, look, this person that had EDDs were the first one that would let go. They said, look, you don't have the credentials. You've been teaching here for 30 years. You've been doing a good job, but you still don't have the credentials to teach at a university. And we thought that was very arbitrary. I mean, why? This person has been teaching here, excellent teacher for 35 years, and now you're telling that person, you're not good enough to teach for us? And we thought it was very arbitrary. So a lot of EDDs were let go. Some of them that were able to retire. They were almost forced to retire, and then we stayed with only PhDs. I was lucky that I had a PhD at a time. Now, and there was during the community college TSC partnership, there was people that were teaching, say, sociology, which had PhDs in anthropology and vice versa. It's a nebulous area where you can teach, let's say, sociology, and you had a PhD in government or philosophy. Well, even those people that didn't have a degree in field were let go, even though they were excellent people. And we thought it was very unfair. Now we never. I mean, what are we going to do? The faculty, we were under the gun. We were afraid that tomorrow I'm be the next one gone. So we were running scared. Yeah, they used to call us dead men walking because we didn't know whether we were which one of us was next. That was during the UTB period. And again, we lost a lot of good people, and some programs got decimated. For example, the psychology department where my daughter was at got decimated.
Do you, just going back to something you said, do you remember that name of your colleague that had been there for 35 plus
I'd rather
years?
not say. I'd rather not say the name because she may not appreciate it.
That's fine. That's understandable. Yeah. And was that feeling, I guess, of, that fear, that dead man walking, you said that was like a mutual feeling between...
Oh, yeah, it was overall,
colleagues?
the whole faculty, yeah, throughout the university, yeah. All the faculty, the whole faculty was fearful for the jobs, yeah.
Were there any departments you would say that were more heavily affected?
Yeah, there were. I think the psychology department. As far as I know, maybe the English department, which had people that I know that were very good, and young kids that had just started teaching, had master's degrees, and that was fine to teach, and then some. You gone. Sociologist, yeah. But overall, throughout the whole university, there were deep cuts and arbitrary, as far as we were concerned. And some people said, "Well, guess what? You're gone." There was a lady that had 2 PhDs, fully tenured, got let go, and I thought that was so unfair. We thought, and what could we do?
Did those people that were let go, do you think did they move on to other jobs in the area? What do you think happened
They left.
to them?
Most people left. Now, we have these people that were with the community college prior to the partnership with UTB TSC. They had been like me. I started in 1990, and the people that have been there before. Now, some of these people that got let go by UTB were picked up by the community college. They went back to the community college, and they're still there at the community college teaching. So in a way, it worked out really good for them, because even though they got let go of TSC, the community college said, you know what, you were employed with us before, so you come in and we'll give you a job. And there's people still there, and they're very happy, because now they know what they're doing. There was a lot of uncertainty when we were university. Are we doing research? Are we doing teaching? Where is the money? Where are the facilities to do the research? Where is the space, the time, and so on? And other people that were fairly recent hires, they left.
And as far as people telling you, or you being told that you were, I guess, overqualified, that you shouldn't be at, that you should go out into this bigger, I guess, research universities or something. Is that something you would ever consider? Or?
No. After I finished my PhD in Houston, I went and worked at MD Anderson in research, and I didn't like research. I mean, research is fine and dandy for whoever is doing it. At MD Anderson at Cancer Center, I did 2 years, and it was fine. But I always thought I'd do more by coming and educating, people that need to be educated. Like I tell the students, look, some of you are going to succeed in spite of me, because I'm just here to help the one that comes halfway. That's my mission. And it might sound corny, it might sound, a little sentimental, but I'm really proud of some of the kids that have made it out there. And I have a few kids here in town that are pharmacists. A few of them are lawyers, of all things. And I have a couple of doctors that were my students. And that's what I'm really proud of having. I said, look, I helped you. I didn't do it for you. I have nurses, kids that said, oh, you took your class and it was good, man. I'm a nurse now. And I said, well, great.
Just one quick thing. I think your wire is showing on our screen. Do you want to
Yes.
fix it, or should I go?
Yeah, you could just undo the button.
Okay. And lower it?
No, just the second.
Oh, here?
Yeah, just right.
In?
Yeah.
Okay. Like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, so what do you think the future holds for RGV? Or what do you hope is to come? Or how do you think that's going to come about? What do you look forward to?
Well, there eventually we get the money that we got promised, and then we can build a bona fide university. I mean, a real university that we don't get very fancy. That's the way I call it. Because like when we started with UTB, we wanted to have doctoral programs, but our BS degrees were not as strong as I thought. I would say, look, when you build a house, you build the foundations first, and you build good foundation, and then you build the rest. Our feeling was that we were building the roof before we were building good foundation. And I don't think it should be. I think universities take a long time to develop. UT Austin was not created overnight. You guys, well, I say you guys, UT Austin has been there since when, 18 something? I hope we don't rush into creating something that we're really not. Our students are not the best students in the world. They have the talent, but we used to have the market corner here. Most of our students coming out of high school, we go to UTB TSC. Okay, now some of the better students transfer out. You know, there's a lot of scholarships that that are offered to the better students to go off to the universities. You probably have some up in Austin that they straight out of high school they went off there because they're very good. Now our students that stayed behind, sometimes it's not because they're not very good, it's because of the family ties. Most of our students work. They're working part-time. Right now I go to Stripes and I see the kids working there and to make ends meet. They're poor. They're a very, very poor area. And our students struggle. Some of them are married. Some of them, our idea or the idea of the parents is that you're 18, well, now you go and work and help us, the household, right? You're going to live here. You're going to, we're poor. We supported you until you were 18. Now you go out there and get a job. And, but I want to go to college. Well, sure, but you could do that on your own, and you can, hopefully you can do both. So our students are struggling in terms of time, and sometimes the students don't do well because they don't have the time. So I hope the university understands that we need to provide the services for the students and do a good foundation. We don't need to get very fancy. Oh, we're going to have a PhD program in, you name it. When the BS degrees are not very well funded, and hire more faculty so that we can teach classes in the evening. Most of our faculty members, especially tenure faculty members, we want to choose our hours. We want to teach at 11 to 2 in the afternoon, and that's it. We want to go home, right? I don't want to teach at 8 in the morning, and there's a kid that has to work in the afternoon, and guess what? He or she has to come to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I'm not going to teach at 8. That's my criticism. I'm not going to show up here at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Because I'm tenure, so, and then also teaching class in the evening. Some of our students work during the day and they want to come and take class in the evening, so we should offer classes in the evening. So we should hire more people, or even offer classes on Saturday. But me as a faculty member, I'm not going to work on a Saturday. So, we have to lay the foundations first and then build up slowly. That's my main criticism. It's not a matter of building castles up in the sky. Then what about the foundations?
So is this an opinion that's not really shared with a lot of people? Like, do you think there are a few people who believe that the foundation is the most
Well, the
important?
faculty understands that. Our administration may not. Administration is more interested in very, how was the word, splashy news. Oh, we have a PhD program in astromechanics, just to name anything. Now, do you offer a BS degree on that? Yes, but we're more interested in that. What's the point? Most of our kids want to get their education, the undergrad education, then move on to other things. We can't have PhD programs without having good BS programs.
So you mentioned a couple of the pros and cons of the merger. Do you think that similar progress in the community and in the universities, do you think that could have been made without merging those campuses?
I think so, yeah. If the state, the people with the hold the money, would have decided to fund UTB fully and build a big campus and so on, that could have happened. Yeah, when we were UTB TSC, UTB had TSC had all the buildings because they've been here forever. Then with UTB, when we formed the partnership with UTB, with TSC UTB, then UTB started using the buildings from TSC, and then they built one building. The UT system built one building, and we worked like that, and it was fine. Okay, when the divorce came along, there was word that the UT system was going to buy some land outside the city, a huge chunk of land by Rancho Viejo. You drive through right before you get into the city, where they have the new school of biomedical something, and that was the rumor. The UT system was going to buy this huge piece of land where they were going to build the UTB campus. which was great. You know, the UT system wants to invest the money. There it is. Nothing came along with that. And I think it would have been if the UT system was really serious about building a university, they would have done that. Build a brand new campus. But I know it requires a lot of money. And that's what they would have done better. Now, Pan Am up there would have been, would have stayed as its own campus, which is huge, and although, as I said, not very pretty, but they had good facilities inside, and that would have been better.
And besides the money, why do you think they didn't follow through on that? Why do you think the building of that campus wasn't?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's mostly money. I don't really know why the UT system didn't do it. I mean, that was a rumor that we heard, and it was almost like, you know, you hear many rumors, so that was one of those, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And once we saw that they were surveying the land, I said, well, that's where we're going to go. But I don't know the reason other than money.
So, fast forward to, I guess, just last year, or from what I gathered from my research, I read that UTRGV had undergone some kind of problem with their like accreditation or something. Could you elaborate on that? Or
What we hear it had to do with some technicalities. We don't really know the details. I don't know the details. Something to do with technical things. And the latest I heard was that in order to solve, to me sounds ridiculous, in order to address the problems with accreditation, they're designing a new web page for the university. And I said, what does that got to do with accreditation? But that was the latest. You can even read it in the school newspaper. The student newspaper. Oh, we're designing a new web page. Okay, that's going to help. But who knows what they had a whole thing, a whole mess of reasons that they got from the coordinating board, but they're very technical. I myself don't understand. I don't think most people don't understand issues.
And I guess your colleagues were informed of this. Were the students aware of that, like possible probation or something?
Well, we're on probation right now. And if we don't fix things by the end of the year, they remove the accreditation. Now, I heard that some people don't want to apply to the medical school because the medical school is part of the UTRGV. So if we were to lose the accreditation, the medical school is out. So I have a student that applied to the medical school there, and then as he went to the interview, he was talking to other candidates, and they were among themselves. They were talking about, well, what's going to happen to this? I mean, we're applying to this university. What if we get accepted? And then by December, they're going to tell us, you know what, the school is not accredited, so they will lose their chance to go to other universities. And the students are aware, like I was saying before, the students know what's going on now with Twitter and I don't know what else is out there. I mean, news, they spread quickly. Of course, you hear a lot of rumors also. But this thing about the accreditation, the students are wondering, what's going on? Even high school students, do I really want to apply to UTRGV? What if they lose the accreditation? What's going to happen to us? And I tell the students, look, I do not think and I hope that the UT system would not allow for this university to lose the accreditation, its accreditation. Because we're part of, whether we like it or not, we're part of the UT system. And the UT system has to do its best to tell our administration, the UTB administration, look, fix these problems. What's going on here? They have to be accountable. Of course, just like any new administration, they blame the old administration, like even though the new president blames the previous president of all the stuff that is going on. But I hope that the UT system would not allow us to die. I mean, to lose our accreditation, because it will be a black mark on the UT system itself. Because we are, again, whether we like it or not, part of the UT system.
And what has to be fixed to be reinstated, like as an accredited university?
I really don't know. Like I was saying, there's technicalities having to do with reporting, and I really don't know the details. No, I really don't know. And the administration claims there are minor technical problems that they could be fixed. Our president mentioned that when he served as the president of Texas Tech was also on probation when he served as president. So he knows how to deal with accreditation problems. So he's promising that by the end of December everything will be fixed. And I hope so. And I mean for the good of everybody, and our students and everybody else. Yeah.
Is there somewhere we could like find those like technical issues that are being like?
The university website published them. Yeah, a couple of months ago they were there. Yeah. And I suppose it's public information. Yeah. You can even contact someone at the university that will talk about it.
And so would you say, so you were talking about how a couple of students, like for example, that are applying to the med school or considering applying to the med school or RGV in general, they are questioning it now? What is something that I guess you would say to them to, I guess, calm their fears?
The same thing I told you. I said, look, the UT system is not going to allow this to happen. They're going to fix the problem. It will be fixed. But again, the UT system is not going to put up with or accept that one of its schools lost its accreditation. The UT system has armies of lawyers and people that know what to do, and then they will come and help us out if we need help. But our president is supposed to be very well versed at dealing with these problems. So I tell the students, don't worry about it. And I said, it should not happen. And I said, just stick it out and we'll be fine. But I said, by next year, nobody will even talk about the accreditation problems.
And what, I guess, is some advice you would give to current or future generations regarding education, regarding those facing like disparities in their education currently? Like, what would you tell them?
Just to keep going, that education is the only way out of if there was any poverty on this property. I mean, you just gotta give it your best shot and apply yourself. And I tell the students, you don't have to be bright, you don't have to be super intelligent making it this business. Look at me. I tell the students sometimes I criticize you because you don't study. I was one of you. I was just goofing around. When I was young, I used to sit on a bench and watch the girls go by and not go to class. And I said, but then, you know, and again, I'm not very bright, but you can do it. I mean, now if you cannot go and get out of this town because of difficulties, we have a university that can provide with very good education, because that's what we do. And then I said, once you get your degree, then that's another problem. Then you need to get out because you get a degree in chemistry, there's not really much to do here. Then you just move on. I mean, hopefully you can. You just gotta try. You gotta try very, very, very hard. That's all it takes. You gotta be stubborn. You gotta be, you know, like I'm talking about myself, I'm very obsessive. If you ask me, I can memorize the telephone book. I might not know what it means, but I memorize it if I have to. That's all it takes. Because I grew up with that idea. I tell you a story that my dad, the people ask me, what is the best advice your dad ever gave you? And I said, well, I'll tell you the story. Short. We grew up very poor in Matamoros, the poorest of the poor. Imagine, I mean, my parents, you know, my dad was a door-to-door salesman. He would go and sell things, and then he'll go and collect the payment every month, abonero, as they call them in Spanish. You know, that's what he did. He was very good at what he did, but he didn't have the education. So a guy would have like a jewelry store. My dad will go and sell these things door to door, and then he'll collect the payments every month, and that's how he made 10% of whatever he collected. We lived in a neighborhood where it was, I tell the students, no running water, no indoor facilities, nothing. We lived in a hut. That's all we could afford. My mother would take in laundry. We had no water. We had to go and carry water in buckets from not very far, maybe a block or so. We had no electricity. I didn't grow up with TV, phones. I'm even afraid of the phone. I don't know what I told the other day. I don't have a phone in my office. I'm so glad, because the ringing of the phone gets me really scared. I'm scared of the phone. Anyway, so I tell the students, look, I grew up in the worst of what you can think of, but we were very happy. We were always, my parents provided with food, right? We ate beans and rice and a little bit of meat every now and again, and fruit. Well, it was unheard of because we couldn't get to it. And we I had a pair of shoes. My mother always made sure that I had a pair of shoes to go to school, and then the uniform. We used to wear uniform when we went to school. I get home, I take off the uniform and put in something else, right? Because you save your uniform. And then I tell the students, that's how I grew up. Now, my parents always said, look, you got to go to school. You got to go to school. There's no two ways about it. And my father said, look, see the teacher? Like I was telling you, that's your second father. That's your father in school. And if he beats you up, teachers wouldn't beat you up if you didn't deserve it. You know, they will hit you upside the head and this and that. There never any abuse, because those teachers were not, you know, nowadays you have teachers teaching, but they don't really want to do it. You know, that's not their vocation. Before being a teacher, it was a vocation. It was something you really wanted to do. And like a priest, you know, all priests, you know, you really want a teacher back in Mexico was poor, but he was held in high regard, you know, because he's got knowledge. I mean, and the teacher was, you know, nothing. In fact, two of my sisters are teachers also. And then my father said, look, beat you up? I'm going to beat you up when you get here too, because I know that you're misbehaving. Anyway, so my father, and I tell the story to my students, that nowadays the students don't learn or don't know the multiplication table, seems like. I tell them, but 2 times 2, you know, they're amazed that I can multiply by 10 in my head. I tell them, look, I tell the story about my mother. My mother used to do laundry and ironing for other people. And my mother would sit me down where she was doing the ironing and said, don't think that she had an iron like we have nowadays that you can plug it into the wall. She had to heat it up on the stove and then use that old iron. And she'll sit me down there and make sure that I knew the multiplication tables. It was late at night, and she'd go, okay, learn multiplication table of 4. 4 times 1, there I am. She goes, you ready? Yeah. Okay, 4 times 1, 4. 4 times 2, 8. I knew the pattern. And then she would jump 4 times 7. Boom, hit me upside the head. Do it again. Mom, fall asleep. Do it again. She drilled me on those things. And that's how I learned the multiplication. And I learned discipline, right? Now, I'm the oldest of the boys. I have no sisters. We lived in this hut, which was always leaking, you know, with holes and this and that. So my father, me being the oldest boy, my father had to get up on the roof and fix it. I had to fix it, you know, put a little tar in. My father would get up on a ladder, and then, of course, I was the only one. So, okay, bring me this, bring me that. I'm afraid of heights. I'm mildly dyslexic. So I'll go up on the ladder, I get halfway, look down, I will freeze, right? Now what I do? And my dad was up there, you know, just impatiently waiting for me to bring him up whatever he needed. I was the only boy, and, you know, what is he? He'll get exasperated, come on, get out of the way, you know. Well, best advice he ever gave me in very colorful Spanish, and I will not repeat it, but you can fill in the blanks. He told me that I was too stupid. He told me, look, you're too stupid. Go to school. If not, you're going to starve to death. Because that's the best advice he ever gave me. He said, you can fill in the blanks in Spanish. Go to school. If not, you're going to starve to death because you're too stupid. If you were bright, you wouldn't need an education. You could get by in life. Yeah, and when, and then that's what I tell the students. I say, look, you gotta keep trying. You gotta try. We used to wade through mud to go to school. And my father, I didn't like the mud. And now I'm, I get really anxious when I get mud in my shoes because wading through mud. The streets were not paved. So and then my dad one time told me, "You don't like mud, right?" I said, "No, I hate this stuff." He goes, "You know what? If you don't go to school, you'll be wading through mud for the rest of your life. It's your choice." I have a sister that also grew up with us. She's a little younger than me, of course. She's got this thing about cold, because we lived in this house. The winters here will get very cold inside, and she tells me now that she lives on this side, she can afford air conditioning and heating. She goes, cold I cannot stand. Her air conditioning is not set very low, but her heat, she always puts it on because she remembers that she was laying down in bed back in Matamoros when she was young. She had to wrap her feet with newspaper because it got so cold in order to sleep. And that's how we lived. But we knew that's what it was. She became a teacher. Now she lives on this side. Now she can crank up the heat. So that's what I tell the students. Look, take the opportunities, take advantage, study, and you can make it. It doesn't take brains. I'm a prime example. Did I answer your question? I hope I did. I hope I didn't ramble on with other things.
No, you definitely answered it. You definitely. And just, so something you said was that I guess now we have teachers who don't particularly enjoy teaching and students who, compared to, you that can just multiply in your head. Now we're learning, I guess, basic algebra in very advanced grade levels now. What do you think has changed, or why do you think that is?
Well, I talked to kids that are teaching. They were my students. They said, "Well, look, when we go into a classroom, the first thing we need to do is install the discipline problems first, and regular school, because even my daughter, she's an English teacher. She goes, I spent half of the period trying to get the kids to settle down. One kid might be up on the windowsill, another kid is bouncing up there, and it takes me a while to get them going. By the time I'm ready to give a lesson, I already wasted half an hour. Okay, so it's a lack of discipline. Also, some, maybe parents don't instill discipline in their kids and the students, and so I think it's a lack of mostly discipline on the new generations coming along. Not that they're any less capable. It's just that they're less disciplined. Now we even see it at the college level. A few years ago, we never had any problems with discipline. Now we see more problems, and I'm not I don't put up with anything. A kid doesn't want to talk. Say, get out of my class. And I said, look, what are you here for? I mean, you're wasting your time and my time. You're spending your money, you're wasting my time, and you're distracting other people. I think it's mostly that lack of interest in this interest in the sense that students have more distractions. I mean, I go to class and the kids are playing with whatever they're on the internets and this and that. And they get very scattered, and they don't achieve as well as much as they whatever as much as they could.
Do you think I loved the best advice that your dad ever gave you? Do you think he encouraged you to get an education because he couldn't get one of his own? Do you think that was a big factor?
And not only that, because he saw that the only way to get to advance was through education. We lived in Mexico where these parties in terms of economic, they were so large. There was no middle class at the time. We were lowest of the low, and there was the very rich. And he said, look, at least get an education, then you can get by. Nobody can take that away from you. They get educated, and you can move up, because he saw people getting educated and moving up, at least up to a point, never become rich, which college professor were not rich, but at least live comfortable. When, when I told my mother that I had gotten that I was a doctor, gotten a PhD, I went over and I was very proud of myself. Mom, soy un doctor. She goes, me duele aquí. I told him, no, I'm not that type of doctor. Ah, you're not a doctor. Get out of here. But yeah, my dad saw the value of education. Like I said, he was interested in knowledge. He was not interested in degrees, because he says, ¿Quién sabe más? That was his big deal. Not a matter of papers, degree, big deal. But and sometimes I look back and now I see what he means, or what he meant. ¿Quién sabe más? I think it means a whole lot, not only just, yeah, who knows more, or how much do you know? Yeah.
How did your father feel about you becoming a professor then?
It was very interesting, because like I said, my father never wanted to come to the States. And one time I brought him up to my office. And I think the mere fact of seeing his name, it was almost brought him to tears. He didn't understand the whole thing about being a professor. He knew that I was a teacher at a university. But then once I got him into the office, he just didn't say anything. But you could tell that he kind of, my father was a man of few words. He didn't say much. He we me, and I knew, but I mean, he worked very hard. He broke his back to support us, but he never said much. But when we came over to show him my office, you could tell. Yeah. My mother still says, "I'm not a doctor," because I cannot tell what's wrong with her. She, you're not a real doctor. Get out of my house.
And circling back, I guess, to your father never wanting to come to the States, what was it that appealed to you about coming to the States?
Well, I tell you why I wanted to. It's interesting. I had my mother had sisters that had come with her from the ranch, and then, like I was telling you at the beginning, they became they were mostly maids, because that's all they could do. Some of them were able to migrate north, and my mother went all the way as far as Galveston, with another aunt. But then my mother, she wasn't comfortable there. One of my aunts got married there in Galveston and stayed. And my mother will go and help her out, be a maid, help out, and then she'll come back, illegally, of course. And then I have another aunt that lived in Chicago, still lives there, and another one that lived in Galveston. So they stay there. So when we lived in Matamoros, then every now and again, just about once a year, my aunts and their kids will come down and visit us, and they were rich compared to us. I mean, they had a car. We never had a car. My dad used to be on a bicycle. They had a car. They were well off. They were very rich, as far as we were concerned. And my aunt, my uncle, they will bring us little gifts on Christmas. But they were, and then I said, well, what am I doing here? Why don't I just go to the United States? There's the land of opportunity. And they were very nice, but they were living at, they were not rich in the States. They were, but relatively speaking, they were much better off than us. So that's how I got the ambition of going to the United States, the land of milk and honey. I mean, the opportunities, there's where it's at. In Mexico, I would have, if anything, when I grew up in Matamoros, there was no university to speak of. When I graduated from high school, they had just started a institute, tecnológico in Matamoros, and all you could become was an engineer. And I didn't have the aptitude as an engineer. I just couldn't do it. Because I remember being in high school, I could do English. English was easy for me. And the reason why I learned English is that I used to listen to rock music. But I couldn't understand what these guys were saying, what they were singing. And I said, well, maybe it's just me. And I made an effort to learn English so I could understand what the singer was saying. Now I understand they slur the words and nobody understands what they say anyway. But to me, it was like, I got to learn this. Anyway, so for me, it was the English, it was something that came easy for me. Maybe looking also at the ambition of coming to the States eventually. And then I used to do in high school, I used to do the homework for my mates in English, and they do the drawings, because in high school you take drawing for architecture, because they get you prepared. In Mexico, you know, it's called preparatoria. They get you prepared to go to the university. So they used to teach us everything from philosophy to calculus 1, 2, and then drawing and English, you name it. So I used to do the English homework, and they used to do drawing for me. So and then I always looked at my cousins as, you know, they're rich. Why couldn't I do it? I'm going to go to the United States too, and I can get an education. Then when I heard that, you know, you could get financial aid. When we were growing up in Matamoros, we never, for us, it was unconceivable that the schools would be air conditioned. Really? In Matamoros, there's no air conditioned schools where I grew up. It's really in Brownsville. Well, later on, they said, yeah, and in the United States, the schools are really air conditioned. Really? Yeah. No, really? Yeah. So guess what? Let's go over. Yeah.
And when was it that you moved? What year?
74. I started going to I spent a year in Galveston from 72, and about 74, the first part of 74, and then I started going to TSC in fall 74. Yeah.
What was it like when you first moved here, I guess?
Galveston was different, because it was a change. Galveston, I lived with an aunt, one of my mother's sisters, and it was very different. Like I said, I went to school there, and they thought I was a genius, but I was deaf and mute because I couldn't speak, but I could do the math. In chemistry, they were trying to show me H2 plus O2 equals to water. Big deal, right? I learned this when I was in junior high in Mexico. So they thought I was a genius. I couldn't speak. And then it was a little different, being exposed to the culture of the football and this and that. And I had a great time, to say the least. And then when I came back to Brownsville, it was Mexico. It was Brownsville at the time, 74. It was a very quaint little town. You weren't born yet. Quaint little town, sleepy college. We had maybe about 350 students. Very small, very good though, but very small. The teachers that cared, small classes, and it was pleasant. I used to go back and forth every day to Matamoros and back to come to school. We didn't need a student visa, anything. It was great. But now I got the opportunity to finish up 2 years of college. Now, when I went off to Houston, big city, I used to stand in front, inside of the buildings, and I thought they were going to follow me, because I had never seen a big building. Gee, this thing is going to follow me, you know. But Brownsville was fine, and the TSC, Texas Southern College, was very good. It offered a lot of us opportunities to move on. Some of the kids that I went to school with, and nowadays they're dentists. I know one that is a vet here in town. We started the same. I think it was a year behind me. I just noticed here is that I drove it to the parking lot. They put something about a dentist. I can tell also by the names. There's a banner there about a dentist, Emilio something. He came to school with, I think, a couple of years after I did, to TSC, and he was able to go to dental school. Yeah, so some kids, like I said, they went off to the schools, and some of them are teachers. But it was the opportunity was there with the community college, and the teachers made sure that we learn well. We get ready to and to move on. And all the courses with TSC were able to transfer to the big universities. Everything was transferred. No question about it.
So did you ever consider going back to Mexico, moving back to Mexico?
No.
Or?
No, because I can see the disparities there. I tell people, if I would have never come to the United States, I'd probably be working at a maquiladora right now with no degree. No, No. Maybe when I was younger, a few years ago, I thought maybe I'd retire in Mexico, but now with all the problems and this and that, no.
Was there anything else that you feel like I might have missed, or did you want to touch on anything else, emphasize anything else that we might not have discussed?
Now that I finally waken up, right? I don't know what to say the first hour or so. So
All good things. All good things.
no, not really. Well, I guess the only thing is that my mission is I don't like to be called a professor because I'm really not a professor. I just so happened that I went and got an advanced degree so that I could teach. And I tell you a story where I got a PhD. And when I went off to Houston, being married and having a wife and kids back home, I said, look, I'm just going to get a BS degree and then find a job. Well, I graduated and then I looked for a job and I got a job at the medical center in Houston. But when I went up there, I didn't, before, just after BS, I was going to be a phlebotomist and whatever it was. And then I met a friend. At the time, there were very few Mexicans, I call them. I don't call them Hispanics because Hispanics it'll be all the way from Mexicans to Salvadorians, Nicaraguans, and everything else. I call them Mexicans. There were very few of us at the university up in Houston. Even though it was boomtown, there were many of us. One time I saw, I was very, very, very excited because I saw on the student directory a lady last name was Mar, M-A-R. Prima, right? Must be a cousin. So I was really excited. I said, oh God, I'm going to go and meet this lady. So she worked at the student newspaper. That's how I found the name. I went up there. Oh, she was Oriental. Which is last name Mar, right? So I say, oh, okay, well, oopsie, I thought it was one of us. Anyway, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. I completely forgot. See, I'm telling you, I got this thing, I'll go off. Yeah, I did forget. What was I saying? I forgot.
No, just about, I guess, like anything that we hadn't discussed like previously in the interview, but what your mission, you believe.
Oh
your
yeah.
mission
Why
was.
did I get a PhD?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and then I met this fellow that was also Mexican. He was working on a master's degree at U of H. Now, as an undergrad, my grades were not great. I barely had a 3.0. I was just struggling, working and this and that. I said, look, get a BS degree. My hope was that I get a job in Houston, maybe at San Antonio, and then ask the wife to go up there with me and work as a technician. Just get a job, a BS degree. Now, this guy told me, look, why don't you apply to a master's program here at U of H? And I said, really? And he tells me, yeah, they accept everybody. And I said, even with my low grades? He goes, yeah. He goes, don't worry about it. They take anybody. So I did. I applied. So I got into a master's program. Now, I took the GRE twice. They let me in on probation. See, U of H was very good to me too because they allowed me to get in on probation. And then I took the GRE twice, and one professor told me, it's very hard to increase the GRE scores significantly. He goes, you're going to take it again, your scores are not going to go down, and they're not going to go up by much. But me being stubborn, I said, well, I'll give it a shot anyway. Well, anyway, I raised them up a little bit, just enough to make the cut. So I got in. I started working on a master's degree, and then and after a year or so, I decided to go for a PhD. Because, again, I hope it's not a boring story. I had met during when I went to the student seminars and faculty seminars, I had met this professor. He was from Spain. He was a Catalonian, Professor Oro, very famous, Nobel Prize, not awardee, but he was a Nobel Prize, had been nominated for a Nobel Prize in chemistry. And he was a very nice fellow, short little guy, the nicest guy, again, a great teacher. Okay, although he did a lot of research. So we met and he goes, you so-and-so, I was a grad student, lowly, nobody grad student. So this professor said, if you ever decide to go for a PhD, why don't you go work with me? And to me, it was Professor Oro, full professor. Everybody, Professor Oro will walk by and everybody will go, Professor Oro, where do you want to sit? Please take my seat, things like that. And then I wanted to get a master's degree. I was enrolled in the master's. And now the master's degree training, I got serious. I said, this is serious. We had the rule about 2 C's and you get thrown out. Simple as that. Get 2 C's and you go. Anyway, so eventually I started liking grad school, and the wife says, well, why don't you just stick around? Might as well get a master's and maybe a PhD. And really, PhD, really? I said, me? Okay. But then I told my advisor for a master's program that I wanted to get a PhD. And he told me something that I will never forget. And I took it personally. He told me, you don't have the talent that it takes to get a more advanced degree in the Western world. And I said, is that so? And I said, okay. But by the time, I had already heard Dr. Oro asking me if I wanted to get a PhD. So I went and talked to, into Professor Oro's office. Now, I made a big mistake, because before you come and talk to Professor Oro, you have to make an appointment with his secretary. The department had a secretary, but Professor Oro had his secretary that you go and see first before you waltz into Professor Oro's office. But I didn't know. So I just showed up to his door, to his office. He looked up, said, look, you remember me? He goes, vaguely. Very nice fellow, the nicest guy. And I said, well, can I come and work for you? He goes, well, aren't you working for another? I said, no, but I decided to go for a PhD and so on and so forth. He goes, okay, you can start working with me. Just go and talk to my secretary and make arrangements so she can give you a key to the door and you can come into the lab and so on. So I went and talked to the secretary and she goes, well, the first rule, and this was Mariana, I will never forget, Mariana O'Rourke. And she goes, a very Irish, very formal lady, old-fashioned lady, tall, very stiff. She goes, do you know that before you come and talk to Professor Oro, you need to talk to me first, and maybe I can give you permission to make an appointment for you in a few weeks. I didn't know. But Mariana was the sweetest person in the world. Anyway, so I started working with Professor Oro. Now, when time came by for the qualifying exams, the reading exams, then I got serious. Working for Professor Oro, I didn't want to let him down. I took my qualifying exams, reading exams, and I made the highest grade for the grace of God and my mother's prayer. And then the guy that I had worked before, he had told me that I didn't have the highest, what I took to get the highest degree. I saw him on the hallway one time, and he says, well, I heard you made the highest score in the reading exams. And I couldn't say anything else. And who was I? I said, well, I guess good news travel fast. And I just walked away. And after that, got my PhD, and all thanks to Dr. Oro. Yeah, and that's why we get a PhD. And then I said, well, no, I got to go back, and I really do feel like I'm giving back to the community, because I've been educating kids. But at the time I thought what the first professor had told me was an insult. But I think it was good in the long run. It kind of forced me to prove that I can do it. Maybe I didn't have the talent. It's not a matter of talent. Maybe he was right, but it was a matter of if I apply myself, and I apply myself very hard at my PhD, and I got it. All thanks to Professor Oro, that guided me through. And at the time, I was really hurt when the other professor said, you don't have the talent. But and now I said, well, maybe I didn't. But I had the drive. That's all it takes.
I believe that is all. Those are all the questions I have.
Okay.
Just to clarify, so you got your bachelor's and then your PhD and became a U.S. citizen in?
I became a U.S. citizen in 1988.
After receiving your
PhD. Yeah, I got it in 87, and then I was working at MD Anderson 88. That's when I got it. Yeah, 88. Yeah.
Well, I think we are all set. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
Not really. I got plenty of such stories, but no. Well, thank you for this chance, and I hope I answer all your
No,
questions.
thank you so much for meeting with us. Really, your input is essential to telling the story, so thank you so
This is
much.
a different perspective. I'm an immigrant, and I see things in a different way. Uh, um, uh, I didn't grow up in the United States, and we have a different view of this country. Still the greatest country in the world, as far as we're concerned. That's why when you ask me, would you go back to Mexico? Never. No, because I mean, I'm grateful. I was born there, and and I appreciate the culture and so on. But the opportunities for people like me, coming from the bottom, from the way, and I tell my students, I was the poorest of the poor. We had a lot of dignity. We worked very hard, but we were able to come up, and thanks to this country. In Mexico, I would have never gone beyond being a laborer, a day laborer. This is still, with all the problems, all the drawbacks, this is the greatest country in the world. I'm very, very, really grateful. I tell my daughter, when I die, I want you to, well, my youngest daughter, when I got my citizenship, when I got my first passport, I was so proud getting my U.S. passport. I tell my daughter, look, people will kill for this passport. And when I die, when you have your grandkids tell that your father, me, it was one of his proudest moments to get that citizenship, the American citizenship. Because for me, it's great. I mean, it's just America. If you always lived in this country, never seen the other side, it's difficult. But when you come from a very poor background and see the opportunities here, this is the land of milk and honey, really is. With all the problems and disparities, but it's better than anywhere else in the country. And thanks to immigrants, that's why we're so big. I mean, we're so great. This country is great because of the immigrants. First generation, as we come in, we take advantage. Now, sometimes our sons and daughters don't become as successful as the first wave, because they get used to everything is given, it's there, so they don't have to work as hard as those immigrants. But Orientals have this thing about working very hard and studying, and that's the idea. Hard work, that's all it takes.